Hi there, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Finance Success. Today, we're going to be delving into the world of cryptography and cryptocurrencies, and I'm going to be going over why the main reason to buy Bitcoin. So, without further ado, let's just start. So, my first video on Bitcoin was in April, and one of my reasons was that you shouldn't trust the government. And so let's just look at some of the things I was pointing out. So I was showing you examples of how the Zimbabwean dollar has depreciated to near nothing. I don't even know what number that is. It's over $1 trillion just to get 5 US dollars. And that's according to BBC News. Look at this guy carrying around that. That's the type of stuff that you see in Zimbabwe when they're just trying to buy bread or milk. Lebanon had the same exact thing happen. They were taking people's money and they weren't allowing them to withdraw it from the bank, while they were also simultaneously inflating their currency to basically rob everyone that held their currency. And you saw riots breaking out all over Lebanon. I talked about how even the US government made it illegal to buy actual gold in 1933, and it was like this for like 30 years. Because you want to know why? Because the U.S. government wanted their own gold. Told you about how in March 15th, the U.S. allows banks' federal reserves or reserve balances to go to zero, which means they don't even have to have a single penny of your $1,000 deposit on hand. What happens when you want to withdraw that money? They don't have it. The Federal Reserve said we're not running out of ammo. Don't pull your money out of the banks. That's coming from the FDIC, the people that made the bank insurance. Trump said it's our money, it's our currency, we'll do whatever. So now, that was back then. A lot has changed since April. So, let's just go over some of the things. One reason to hold Bitcoin is right now, there's fears that China is going to lock down their borders and make sure people can't move their money. And what kind of money would they use? They'd probably want to use something with a great store of value, like gold and silver. And you see that in Asia, you can't really take your gold or your silver. Because if I wanted to go through an airport, this is going to get dinged immediately. They're going to notice this in the metal detector immediately. And in some countries, they'll take your currency from you and then allow you to go. You don't get to keep it after that point. Not your currency. Yeah, your currency and even like your precious metals. Everything with value. They just try to steal from you. I know this is China, but how do you know the government's like the US is not going to do it? People always assume, oh, the US government's fine. You're just talking about communist China. Well, sure, times are good now, but what happens when they get worse? People always think of the bright side when you got to think of the negatives. We, as a society, are going down the drain, and it's because of the currencies we use. The US government, the way they print their money and control the money supply, it's controlled by a private entity. The Federal Reserve is a private entity. It is not owned to the public. Many people don't know that. But as you can see here, it's an independent government agency that are set up like private corporations. People actually make money off of printing more money and stealing from you, devaluing your currency, and they're profiting off this. Many people don't know that. And the way it was started was because all the big bankers back in early 1900s got together, like JP Morgan, all got together and they created this concept called the Federal Reserve and said it's for the people. This was right before the Great Depression. You don't think that when they you really want private corporations controlling the money? I'll give you another example. Would you rather have the U.S. government, which is still controlled by private companies, controlling the money, or would you rather have something like Libra? Do you really want Zuckerbucks? Do you want a currency backed by this guy? You know, the guy that stole someone's idea and did not give him that much money in the end. I mean, sure, he did turn it into $1 billion company, but he still stole the idea from someone. Watch the documentary. It's really interesting on him. I don't like him. You see that he steals your data from you without your consent and uses it to their own advantage. There's a reason that they have to testify against the Supreme Court and Congress. I don't know about Supreme Court. Congress, though. And this is because, do you really want someone like this in charge of all this money and all this wealth around the world, all this data? They could use it to their advantage, however. No. And where I'm going with this next is Bitcoin. This is just a representation of what it is. My stuff is stored on the blockchain. If I lived in China and I had Bitcoin, I could take it anywhere in the world and no one can seize it from me. People don't understand that. But it's not like a physical thing where you could just take it and say, oh, you got silver? I'll take your silver. They can't take your Bitcoin without your private keys. And private keys are literally, you could do a mnemonic phrase, which is just 20 words in a certain order, and that is your Bitcoin. And you could take this anywhere in the world. And you could keep this as a store of value. The government does not want you to know the truth. They do not want you to know that the Federal Reserve is a privately held corporation. I certainly didn't know that. Another thing, we see things just getting worse. Do you really want a government that can't even really handle the pandemic right now? With over 50,000 new cases of the virus as of yesterday, just in the US alone, you really want them in charge of your money? Or would you rather have something like Bitcoin, which is, if you trust and believe in the fundamentals of math, that is what Bitcoin is. It's a mathematical formula that says you own your amount of Bitcoin and no one can take that away from you. Not Congress, not the bully down the street, not even the robber. No one can take it unless you give them access. That is the beauty of Bitcoin. Now, before I say anything else, I do want to just mention, I want to have full transparency. Although we're still having a lot of cases, as of right now, about an hour ago or something, Russia announced that they have actually had a coronavirus vaccine announced. But then again, this is Russia. Do we really trust Russia? Same thing. Do we really trust any government at this point? They all lie to us. They all deceive us. There's a reason that right now in the U.S., there's high number of people that don't trust the government. And we're back. Okay. Sorry about that. I fixed it. And we're going to keep going on. Also, at the same time, we're seeing across the U.S. a pandemic that are causing millions of people to be unemployed and even homeless. Right now, the U.S. government has not really helped you. Have they really? They forced you to stay inside, which caused a massive reduction in GDP, which caused massive unemployment because they forced you inside. They're not protecting you. They really aren't. And now, they've only given out a $1,200 check. That may be a lot of money, but that is not enough to cover 6 months of rent. That is not enough money to cover all of your food supplies, all of your living expenses. And we still haven't seen check 2. Like, seriously? We still haven't seen that? And yet they have rose our balance sheet on the Fed like $6 trillion, $4 to $6 trillion in the past 6 months. But they've only given us a mere $1,200. They've also ended, as of recently, now you have to start paying rent again. And that's why we're seeing all of these possibilities of people becoming homeless across the U.S. The government is not doing a good job. And do you really think if the government can't handle a pandemic and helping people live by, giving maybe a little bit of the money that they're printing back to the people, you don't think that they should be trusted with the supply of money? I personally don't. There's a reason that major companies, like now, this was just announced as of a little bit ago, MicroStrategy, a Fortune 500 company worth over, you could buy it on the S&P or something like that, or one of the New York Stock Exchange. It's a $1.3 billion company. And you know what they're doing? They're buying Bitcoin. $250 million worth of Bitcoin. You really don't think this has any value? I don't understand how people can't see this. There must be something there if people and companies like MicroStrategy place a massive bet of $250 million on it. It's a publicly traded company. That is a very big bet as of now. It's a lot of risk. Not everyone understands Bitcoin and why they should buy it. And what do you think the shareholders are going to do? Maybe in the long run they're going to be happy because there's a reason they bought Bitcoin. And this is probably just going to be the first of many corporations trying to store their wealth because governments across the world are printing them into oblivion. And that is why you need assets like gold and silver. You want to keep your store of value, you want to keep your wealth, buy something like this. Buy a precious metal. Only downside with this is it's pretty hard to transport this. This is 10 ounces and it's pretty heavy. It's going to be really hard to take it across borders when the government could seize it at the next checkpoint if they wanted to. But they can't seize this. And that is what I've been trying to stress this whole time. So please, I hope you learned something about this and why I think Bitcoin is severely undervalued and you should honestly just put a little bit of money in it. Because even so what? I could be wrong. This could be worthless. But you know what? Do you really want to take the chance and have your whole net worth dwindle away because the people in the government are just printing money out of thin air like it's no tomorrow and barely helping you survive? No, I'm not trusting them. And that's why I have my money and my wealth stored in Bitcoin. Thank you. I hope you learned something new. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and comment down below what I should do next. Thank you, and peace out till next time.